Okay.
Your head looks fine in the video.
Yeah.
It's just shiny.
Isn't that nice?
Does this feel stimulating?
It is stimulating. I can feel it. Well, obviously. You can rub my... Oh, we can start at any time.
Okay, cool. It's gonna fade to. You'll see it come on when I put up your face.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the further adventures of Pop Culture Talk, Great Stories. My name's Chris. I'm here with my good friend Tyler.
That's me.
And we're going to be talking The Mandalorian today.
Yes.
And, I mean, who hasn't been talking about The Mandalorian, right? Well, producer Phil, I guess he hasn't been talking about The Mandalorian because he doesn't like Star Wars. That's a secret. And now we've let it out of the bag. Yep. I know. He's over there in the booth.
I mean, to be fair, he's missing out because it's good watch. It really is.
It is a good watch. It is everything that you hoped the latest movies would be, basically.
I was going to say, it's vintage Star Wars while not feeling like Star Wars at all. It's more, I feel like it's less a space opera and more a space western.
Yes, that's the space spaghetti western.
Yeah.
Is that what we're calling it?
Like Firefly?
No, not like Firefly. Firefly was way better.
Wow. Okay, bold. I mean, I know Firefly has its very loyal fan base.
Yeah.
And it's a good show in its own right.
Great show.
but guess what? This is the current show.
Oh, okay. Well,
So that in and of itself makes it the superior at this point.
I'm not sure if
Right?
that tracks, but okay, we'll go with it.
All right. No disrespect to the Firefly flans. Flans, I called you flans. Sorry, fans. That's a tongue twister. Say that. Firefly fans, really
I'm
fast.
not gonna embarrass myself
Yeah.
like that. I have other ways I can embarrass myself later.
All right, now it's good. Hopefully it doesn't involve lifting your shirt for the camera like I did in the last segment.
No, I'm not gonna do that either.
Okay.
I'll let it be a surprise. Or maybe I
Um,
won't do anything at all. We'll see.
So
yeah,
anyway, like getting
Mandalorian.
into the meat of the Mandalorian program. Here we are after a very triumphant first season.
Yep.
That had people abuzz. How do you follow it up? Now, do you think, from an overarching standpoint, do you think that season 2 measured up to season 1?
I think in a lot of ways it was better.
An improvement.
Yes.
Okay.
Or
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily say an improvement. It's been scaling. So like I don't really feel like there was an end to season 1 and a beginning to season 2. It's just like season 2 episode 1 was the next episode. It just
Correct.
it just kept going. The story kept building. New characters got involved. The story arc was growing bigger. We got a couple other side arcs going on as well. Like it's a very natural progression to the first season.
It is.
So I think it was successful.
I agree with you.
And it tells a great story.
It does. I think, to your point, I think that actually it is superior in the sense that they were able to, in the sense that they're actually continuing the story. The fact that they were able to kind of weave elements of the earlier episodes in and bring that
Yes.
into forward and have these characters that you thought that these characters, some of them were just going to be like these cameo, like, I don't want to say, what's the right term? Crowd pleasers with no real purpose.
Right.
And that's what I thought we were going to get.
Yes. I get your
And-
point exactly.
Yep.
And I had this same conversation because I only just saw the last episode on Monday, I think
Yep.
it was, or Sunday. When did we do the shoot? For
It
the
was
comic
Sunday.
talk. So
Yep.
Sunday.
Yep.
Sunday I just saw it.
Yep.
And I saw it over at Pierce's house right down the street.
Yep.
And he had already seen the episode. So he knew how the episode was going to end.
Yep.
And he kept on like getting all giddy and stuff as different things were happening and different reveals were happening. And I actually, after the episode, I actually brought that up. I'm like, they did a really good job of doing fan service without it just being fan service. They actually took those elements and integrated it into a story in a very cohesive way that didn't feel, what's the term I'm looking for?
Contrived.
Yeah, contrived.
Yep.
Shoehorned in.
Right.
Like it was very natural.
Yeah.
But we'll get to exactly what that was. Not that anyone who is watching this hasn't already seen it, right?
Right, because
spoilers.
Right. So, so where do we begin?
Well, I suppose if we look at the entire season as a whole, of like kind of what's going on, obviously we know from the first season that the Empire is after the child. We find out a little bit more about exactly what they're doing with that, and that they are trying to get samples of the child's blood, his DNA, to try and figure out, how his power, like what makes him so powerful, especially given that they recognize that it's not just the child himself, but the race that he comes from, a race of alien beings that Yoda is also a part of, that we know literally nothing about. And I think if Lucas has any sway whatsoever, we will never know anything about, because it's something that he's always wanted to keep a secret. But so we get to see a little bit about kind of what's going on with the Empire, why they want the child so bad. But we also get to see that the child is developing his abilities a little bit more, and that Mando is trying to help him do this. And so what Mando's doing is he's trying to track down a Jedi that can train him, so that he doesn't have to basically protect this child. Not that he doesn't want to. I mean, by the end of this season, they have a very heartfelt goodbye. But he wants to find someone who is going to actually help the child become something. Learn how to hone his abilities.
Absolutely. So the personal story arcs or character arcs are very compelling.
Yes.
So you have Mando, who has started season 1, episode 1 as just kind of like this badass mercenary.
Yeah, he's just
a
bounty
on the
hunter.
hunt for credits. You know,
just trying to make his way in the galaxy.
That's right. And now all of a sudden, even beyond his belief system and the order of Mandalorians from which he,
initially
came, he has now found this greater purpose. He is, a de facto father now, and that makes him even more badass in my mind. Right?
He at first feels an obligation to try and protect this child that can't take care of himself, and that slowly evolves into an actual desire to take care of him, desire to see that he makes it through and can survive. And so that's an incredible arc where there's that level of nurturing that isn't required in mercenary life. Like he's on his own, does his own thing. That's an aspect of his personality that does not have to be flexed at all.
Right.
And then he finds himself in this situation where he's just like, no, I need to make sure this kid is gonna survive, that he's gonna be able to make it.
It's actually total counter to what his prior mission was, which is kind of cool. It's transforming for him. And now we've seen a lot of great supporting characters come up along the way too, that also have their own journeys. And what for you are some of those characters that really kind of stand out to you?
Well, we got to see the return of Ahsoka Tano, played by the amazing Rosario Dawson. Who is one of my first crushes as a kid. Growing up. I saw her in a couple different films, and every time I saw her, I was like, oh, she is the best. So getting to see her in this role was absolutely awesome. And
Do you need a napkin for the drool there?
I might. Getting to see her in that role, she was incredible. And I expected nothing. As soon as I found out that she was going to be playing Ahsoka Tano, I was like, oh, perfect. She's going to be excellent. And she was. But that was really more of an ending point for that character, where through the other media that Ahsoka Tano has been a part of, the animated shows, you get to see her growing and developing, and then you get to The Mandalorian, where she is now a fully realized Jedi, albeit one who is on the run, but she is fully realized Jedi master that, you know, she has her purpose.
Yep.
And she sticks to that, and
Yep.
Mando comes to her hoping that she can help to train him, and you get to see just like that connection, that play with the Force between her and the child,
Yep.
and it's awesome because there's that element of Star Wars that was missing from the show at that point. I mean, sure,
Yep.
we get a little bit of you know, the Force with the child in the first season,
Yep.
small displays, but that element of the actual Force use between masters, like if that was kind of missing, so it added that little bit to it that just kind of made it really like feel like, okay, this is Star Wars, like this is good.
It's fantastic. You know, I don't want to depart too much from the Mandalorian talk, but I think what Favreau and team have really done, and I'm not sure if there's another example out there in Hollywood intellectual properties,
Yeah.
right? Where we have really seen this like successful melding or conglomeration of both animated and live action properties really working together in concert. They're, you know, typically they're looked at as being two different things. Animated films being very kid oriented and therefore exist in their own world.
Yep.
Live action being its own separate thing. Even when we have like other properties, like, you know, even the Marvel shows. Let's just use that as an example, right? You don't really have Marvel animated programs that have fed or fostered storylines, or I'm sorry, maybe not storylines, but like fostered like real like continuity with like a Marvel Cinematic Universe film.
Even their live action shows very discreetly work into the cinematic universe. Like there's loose connections, but even right down to like they won't use the same terms between the shows and the movies. Like in the Defenders, whenever they talk about the attack on New York City from the first Avengers, they don't refer to it as anything but like the incident, you know, because they want to make that loose connection, but they can't actually connect them. It's not the case with The Mandalorian.
That's right. And that's, you know, so to me, that rings as like a very unique aspect of what they're doing with the Star Wars properties right now. And I give them credit for that. That's again, a really cool thing. And the connections go even further than that, right? They go even towards the voice actors. Some of the voice actors becoming live action players in the series.
Yep. I can't think of her name right now.
I know we're breaking the fourth wall on that part of it, but it you know, for people who are fans of the animated shows, they feel there's now probably a more seamless connection to what they really enjoyed.
That again, that goes back to the way that they seamlessly integrated fan service into a very cohesive storytelling.
Yeah.
Not entirely like the trilogy that came the past couple of years.
Well,
did a very bad job of that.
Right. Yeah, that thing was just a hot mess.
Not gonna get too much into that, but I would be okay with just kind of letting that not exist.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill weren't in them, and I guess by extension also our good friend Harrison Ford.
Yes.
If they weren't in the sequel trilogy, I feel like we could probably just scrap the whole trilogy and start over. But unfortunately,
what's done is done.
Yeah, you know. Unfortunately, we lost Carrie Fisher, and you know, so.
Yep. But rest in peace. Yep. But yeah, I mean, there's a real redemption here, I think, in the Mandalorian series for the Star Wars franchise.
And I mean, not to like abstain credit from everyone else, but I feel like a lot of that is on Favreau. Because anything that I feel like anything that I see his name attached to just ends up being excellent.
He's got a knack, really, for for some compelling storytelling
Yeah.
and really honoring the material in a way that
that's what's important.
yeah, and so but getting back on track now towards the story.
Right. Digression.
There are a couple other characters that we know from season 1 that get their own
Yep.
time to shine again, right? And some of the characters are not exactly the ones you'd expect either.
Well, yeah, they bring back Bill Burr's character. I'm so bad with character names. It's terrible, especially because Star Wars has such like unique names that I can't remember half of them.
Right.
I mean,
we'll have to get producer guy to fill in the blank for us there and tell us what his character name was.
Yeah, it's just like flash his name at the bottom of the screen every time. I'm just gonna keep calling him Bill Burr.
He was just.
I mean, to be fair, he was just Bill Burr.
He was just Bill Burr. Bill Burr, bad guy.
Yeah,
in the first season, and but now even he gets a chance at redemption.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And he has an awesome moment in one of the episodes. I believe it was called the Siege.
Yeah.
But also you have Gina Carano's character.
Yes, she's fantastic. She's been doing an excellent job. Very compelling acting. The way that she has kind of shifted this the personality from where her character begins, which is basically just this. When she was just she wasn't a mercenary or anything. She was just kind of.
She was basically a dropout from the
and she is slowly shifted. Yep. She became a marshal, and then now she's full.
She's sheriff, basically, right?
No, she's
the sheriff. That's the wrong.
Republic.
Republic, yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
She's now like an actual officer of the Republic, and she takes all that into consideration.
Yep.
When she's and it's convincing. Where she both wants to follow the letter of the law now because she has a responsibility.
Yep.
And so she goes from this person that's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, I'll go with you. Like, we'll get this thing done because she feels like a sense of duty, and now. She's very like, well, we got to play by the rules, but also, all right, I can look the other way. And it's very convincing, her portrayal.
Yes, agreed.
So, and I love that they gave that character that much of an arc, where you actually get to watch, her transfer from like one way to another, and be able to shift between, two very different personality types.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think that there are plans for her character, aren't there, in the future, which I'm very interested in. Is that going to end up being a spin-off show, or are we anticipating seeing her in a season 3?
I feel like we could both see her in that, but if they gave her a spin-off show, especially if Favreau's a part of it, I could watch that for sure.
Yeah, same here.
Because she has a character all herself, and I mean, if they went into a direction where she's basically like, she's a part of the Republic.
Yep.
She has a duty, but that her job takes her to different places, and you kind of follow her around and see how an acting officer within the Republic has to, act, but also the way that she kind of skirts around the rules to make sure that people are actually getting helped.
Yep.
I would watch that.
Yep. 100%
for sure.
On board with that. I want to call attention to here's one of those moments that we had the cameo appearance, Timothy Oliphant.
Oh yeah.
In the very first episode, and he reintroduces us to Boba Fett's armor.
Yes.
Which was kind of a really cool
Yeah, it was nice.
Moment for the fans going, whoa, hey, I know what this is about. I know who that is. Wait, not so fast. You don't know who it is.
Right. And he takes off his helmet, and it's the previous sheriff. And I thought that was great too. And
Yep.
he's a character that very much just, again, wants to help people.
Yep.
He wants to keep peace in this small town where they have been taken advantage of, and he's willing to work with others to try to make that happen, and that is in part his deciding to, if Mando helps him,
Yep.
basically kill this crate worm, then he will give Mando the armor.
Yes.
Which, that's pretty cool, I think. It's a great way to bring the armor back into Mando's possession.
It was cool that they were working together with the Sand People to achieve this goal.
Oh,
and,
my gosh, you're so right. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
The fact that they brought the Sand People into this storyline as not just like a random baddie. Like, every time we see them up to this point, they're just there to be essentially a nuisance. This group of like
They're
people that just
Star Wars version of the Hills Have Eyes,
Yeah.
type of people.
and then you bring them in, it's like, no, they
Yeah.
have a culture, they have a reason for acting the way that they do.
Yes.
This isn't like some malicious people that just like taking pot shots at travelers. No, they have been attacked themselves. They feel like they have to defend themselves.
Right.
And we find ourselves in a position where they're able to align themselves with this other group of people and become,
Unlikely allies.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Like, that is so awesome. Bringing it's
Yep.
a throwback to a type of people that were very familiar from the original trilogy, a set of characters, and yet you gave them so much more depth, gave them so much more life, made them more real, made them more
Yes.
human.
Yep.
Awesome.
Multi-dimensional.
Awesome.
Yep. It was fantastic. And then, of course, at the end of that episode, you get the little tease of, what's to come. And that doesn't reveal itself, I think, for another, 4 or 5 episodes. It was, I think, in episode 6? Yeah, episode
was it
6,
6?
The tragedy. So this was the, after Mando has basically jumped from, place to place, trying to find a way to connect with the Jedi Order.
Right.
To someone within that order that can take the child and
Teach him.
and teach him and groom him to be what he's supposed to be, right? And he's not having a lot of success. He's finding, of course, he comes across Ahsoka Tano.
Yep.
She
She directs him a little bit more.
She directs him, but
Yeah.
she's not the answer that he was hoping, right? And she says, go to this place, the sacred place for the Jedi. And that's where, at the top of the peak of, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, a mountain or a plateau or whatever, that's where Grogu goes into that trance.
Yep.
And we are beset with chaos on all sides from 2 different parties. And that is, of course, the introduction of Boba Fett
Yep.
with an unlikely wing person
Right.
played by Ming-Na Wen, who we saw, again, this is where Favreau has managed to basically drop a character in who you think, like, oh, cool, I know that actress.
Yep.
Like, that's awesome that she's in this, right? But she's only in it for a very short time, and you're like, oh, that was her day, it's done, right? But no, she's back.
Yep, they bring her
And
back.
she's got a very important role. And then they become unlikely allies. Again, that theme running its course
Yeah.
as the Empire, or not the Empire, the Imperial forces basically lay siege to the area.
Yeah.
And one of the probably most intense battle scenes we've seen since, in terms of viciousness.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that kind of, I think, viciousness in intensity in a battle scene in Star Wars since Darth Vader's appearance in Rogue One.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For sure.
And Boba Fett is downright nasty, isn't he?
Still has it.
Even without the armor.
Yeah, still has it. And then, so he eventually gets the armor back from Mando. They form, after the child is kidnapped, they decide, obviously, they got to go after him. They get a small they're a small group of people together to go after him, and we get to see Boba Fett back in the armor, and fully refurbished too.
Yep.
And so, that was absolutely awesome.
It was.
Because he, again, like, the interesting thing about Boba Fett was that he was never a big character. He was just kind of like this side plot character that, and what was the Christmas special that like really capitalized on his character, and like everyone was like, oh, Boba Fett's like the best.
I've never seen it.
Well, so he became this kind of like this cult character where like out of nowhere everyone just kind of fell in love with him.
Yeah.
And he got a little bit of some added backstory over the years and stuff, and his character was built upon. Obviously the prequels added way more to his backstory by, with the introduction of Jango Fett being his father, although he's technically a clone.
Yes.
But then it shows us that Boba Fett is in fact a clone, which is brought back in The Mandalorian, because that comes up where, he's called out for just being a clone.
Yep.
I think in the last episode. But you get to see him back in action.
Yeah.
This is a fully fleshed out character from the original trilogy brought back as, a full-fledged acting character with an arc. And we get to see him go from basically this, him traveling around in rags, just kind of like trying to find his way back to, where he was before, like a little bit of prowess, find his armor again, and never loses a beat.
Nope.
He still has the same ability he did before, maybe even stronger now after surviving the Sarlacc pit and everything that he's gone through.
Yep.
And he's made his way back. He's found his armor, and now he's there following through with an agreement.
Yep.
To help Mando to get the child back.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's awesome.
It is awesome.
They did a fantastic job bringing this character back in, especially at the very end of the last episode, where they kind of tease that we're going to get a whole lot more Boba Fett in the next season, or maybe I kind of feel like they're aiming towards like a spin-off, but
yeah, that's what I believe it's going to be its own show. I mean, it appears that he's the new Hutt in charge.
Yeah.
So is he going to be running a crime family? Is that what we're going to get? Are we going to get like a Godfather type of Boba Fett? I'm not sure, but
I feel like there's quite an interesting take in store for us, where we get to see that kind of dynamic galaxy of Star Wars. That it's not just about the Rebels versus the Empire. It's not just the politics behind ruling the galaxy, but we actually get to see that outer edge,
the outer rim,
what it actually really is out there, whether you're just like a peasant living in a small village on Tatooine, or if you're now in charge of one of the biggest crime families in the galaxy, or if you're now you've gone from being just a washout to being now an officer for the Republic.
Well, there's such a diversity of cultures in the Star Wars world that there's so much material there that's not explored, because we've always been confined to this like narrow story of following Skywalker, basically the Skywalker saga, right?
Yeah.
In his story, and high ideas like Jedi, and and like powerful figures, basically the power brokers of the universe type of thing, and but I'm always more interested in those kind of like more like relatable, flawed. I mean, not that I'm sorry, the Skywalker saga has tons of flawed people and stuff like that, but regular people,
right?
And exploring the cultures, exploring all these different worlds, like that stuff triggers me more to be more interested in the product.
And it's not just as like a passing bit. Like going back to The Rise of Skywalker, where we get brought to this planet full of these kind of like octopus people, and we get this snippet. Oh, they do this celebration, every so many years because of this thing, and all it is just a medium through which they continue this scene. This like mission for the main storyline. It's kind of just like a side thing to explain why they're there. But we don't actually get to explore the culture at all. Right. Mandalorian is doing that completely different, where they're saying, let's step in, let's see how these people actually live. It's not just like the medium through which the story is told, but we actually get to hear about these other places.
Yeah, we're getting like a grassroots Star Wars story.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
It's been intriguing.
It has been. So, what else is there to say about The Mandalorian?
So we've got. So I want to talk about in the last couple episodes they introduced what's been teased at for most of the season, which is the Dark Troopers, which are essentially cyborgs.
Yep.
They are mostly robotic, but there are troopers actually inside the suits. I'm assuming probably just basically the torso and head, because it seems like their limbs are mostly fully mechanical.
Yep.
But they are these very robotic super troopers that are extremely powerful, extremely capable, and near unstoppable.
Reminded me of the Terminator.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And
like 1 part Terminator, 2 parts chopping mall.
They are a menacing force.
Yes.
And this is where I really took notice to the episode's score. And looking back on previous episodes, the music that accompanies each scene has been great. But in this last episode, in the introduction, like any scene where these Dark Troopers were active, the score was just awesome. It was a very like dark, but like very like electro kind of like music that really like it gave you a feel for what these things were. They were this robotic menace that was there and was nigh unstoppable. And you felt that through the score. And it's just like, wow, like this is really, really good. Like it really drew me into the moment. And that score followed throughout every other scene. Each scene had like just like an excellent score that really made you feel what the scene is trying to portray. So that really brought me into realizing just the power of the score that they had written for these episodes. And looking back on older episodes now, I can appreciate it even more, because before I was so captivated by what I was seeing that I didn't really pay attention to what I was hearing. And now the senses are being refilled, and I'm like, I feel like I could rewatch the entire thing with a brand new perspective.
It's, it's something that a lot of people don't think about. Scores and music are, it's a very like nuanced thing. It's a very like, it's the subconscious level.
Yeah.
But really, without a proper score, without the absence of that, you really feel like it's tougher to tell your story.
Yeah.
People don't understand how critical it is to set a mood, to set a tone, and that's what music does. It does that for us, it's deep in our DNA.
Yep.
And it's a critically important element, and you're right, they nail it. They nail it.
It's the language that passes all barriers, music.
Yes. Agreed.
It does. It does. It's a precious element.
And then, but then the best part of it is the very end. So you have this force that seems unstoppable.
Yep.
I mean, they were literally ejected from the ship.
Yep.
And sent out into space, and then they just fly back because they can. They got boosters in their feet, and they just fly back Iron Man style.
Yep.
And they begin the assault once again on this team. And then we see an X-wing fly by, and they radio the X-wing to get identification. No response, and they watch on the cameras as a robed figure just step out of the X-wing, lights up a saber, and just starts cutting through these things like they're nothing.
Right.
So this enemy that has taken the best from our protagonists. You know, Mando himself had difficulty with a single one.
Yeah.
And here comes this incredible force, a Jedi, just cutting through them left and right, unlike any power level we've seen so far in the show.
Right.
And it really brings so much perspective, because watching Star Wars, there are the Jedi, and then there are the normal troopers and
Yes.
fighters and stuff. And we know that the Jedi are powerful, but because we watch the Jedi throughout the entire series, we kind of lose that intensity. It's like, oh yeah, you fight with lightsabers, they're pretty badass. Like, yeah, they're awesome.
Yep.
But then in this moment within The Mandalorian, where this enemy that has pretty much backed them into a corner,
Yeah.
and then you have a single Jedi come through and just start sweeping every one of them. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
You kind of
It's a
regain
stark contrast.
You regain a lot of the perspective
Yep.
for just how powerful Jedi were.
Right.
And this is the part where Pierce was going, like, he was getting really antsy, and like every time this Jedi would pop up on the screen, he'd be like, yeah, like all excited because he couldn't wait for me to see who it was. And I had my suspicions. Now, at first, I thought it might be Ahsoka, and the reason why was because when they first light up their saber, it's white.
Yep.
And Ahsoka Tano was using white lightsabers. What I didn't realize was that on the video feed that was capturing all this happen, like in the show, it was in black and white, because then after a couple of, you know, screens of this Jedi just cutting through these dark troopers, it then
Yeah.
actually shows the actual perspective, not through this monitor, but actually the Jedi, and they've got a green lightsaber, and it's like, oh,
Yep.
that's not Ahsoka Tano. And I had my suspicion, but I didn't want to say anything, mostly because I didn't want to guess wrong.
Yeah.
But this character makes their way all the way to the main bridge, where Mando and the team are all kind of bunkered in.
Yep.
And he sees the child's reaction to this Jedi that's now standing outside the door, and he realizes that this is not an enemy.
Yep.
And so Mando opens up the doors for him and walks in this Jedi, who then takes off his hood,
Yep.
and it's Luke Skywalker, a fully
It is.
realized Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, like what I wish we could have seen in the sequel trilogy, except a lot of people are giving it crap. They're like, oh, you know, it's terrible CGI to de-age him. And I'm like, no, not at all. I thought it was fantastic.
I thought it was fine.
Like, CGI is far from perfect.
Yeah.
And it will probably be far from perfect for a very long time. We're getting there.
Yep.
But I don't expect it to be perfect, but I thought it was pretty darn good.
Right.
And I think they had to DH his voice too, because it was Mark Hamill actually did the role, but they DH'd him, and I think they had to DH his voice too, because his voice sounded very young. But this wasn't like the broken, you know, kind of misused Luke Skywalker that we see in the sequel trilogy. This is a young, very confident, very strong
Yep.
Luke Skywalker,
Resolute.
like we see at the end of the original trilogy.
Right.
And it was awesome, because this is the Luke Skywalker that you think of when you think of Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
This is the Jedi Master that he has become, and he's literally came just to get the child.
Yep.
And
Before he
that's it.
went emo.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it certainly says, it kind of puts the narrative of the sequel trilogy into kind of disarray, I think, because it makes you wonder exactly what happens. Because now we have this narrative that suggests that Luke Skywalker showed up to take this youngling, this child,
Yep.
and to train him.
Yep.
And we yet do not know what's going to happen there. But what we suppose is going to happen eventually is that Luke Skywalker is going to take in a new class of Jedi to teach,
Yep.
and that young class of Jedi to teach are going to get slaughtered by his nephew, who will then turn to the dark side. So where does the child come into play in that storyline? Because there's no mention of this child.
Right. Yeah, it is a little bit odd, to say the least. But maybe they do need to kind of forget about what happened in that trilogy. And just kind of create their own
Don't
stories.
think it would be a bad thing.
And maybe the Star Wars franchise exists in this time period now for quite a while.
Yeah.
And, we don't have to worry about, that future trilogy and how it doesn't make any sense. Because, honestly, episode to episode, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense and coherence. There's a lot of problems there. So maybe it's fine for a reset. But bottom line is, I don't want to drag this out too much.
Yeah,
longer
we've been
'cause
going for quite a while on this.
But real quick, can you give me a favorite moment from? I mean, maybe you've already kind of covered it. Maybe the Ahsoka Tano appearance and that kind of thing. But is there like a real standout moment, like or a favorite scene that you had that really kind of did it for you in this season?
I have to think back to the entire season to try and think of. I mean, I think probably the greatest point in the character development of Mando, who should be the focus because he is the namesake of the show, is throughout this entire time we don't get to see his face. With the exception of during the siege, he's forced to take off his helmet in order to get access to information that is necessary for them to. I think it was in the siege that they had to do that, because that was the same one that we get Bill Burr again.
Yep.
And so he's forced to take off his helmet. So we do get to see his face.
Yep.
But he kind of had his arm twisted in that situation. But at the very end, when Luke is going to take the child, and they have this moment where they're kind of looking at each other, Mando and the child, and he decides that he's going to take off his helmet to be able to look him in the face. Like, that is such a turning point for him.
Yep.
Because up to that point, the very idea of anyone seeing his face goes strictly against his code,
Yep.
as a Mandalorian, which is brought into contention anyways by the other Mandalorians that we meet throughout the season.
Yep.
Because they are very much in the idea that, like, well, that's a separate sect of Mandalorians that play by different rules, and that they're not they are Mandalorians, but they're not, like, they don't represent all Mandalorians. And he kind of shifts away from this way, in order to have a real moment with this child. And that was so impactful.
It was.
Because you really get to see the entire relationship that he has with this kid come to a head, where, like, he really does not want to let him go, but knows that he has to.
Yep. It's interesting you bring that up, because actually one of my favorite moments was when he had his meeting of the minds with the Clan Ren.
Yeah.
And he is, he's been brought up in this order, like, as you say, which we have come to believe that this is Mandalore. This is actually the true culture of the Mandalorians, right?
Yep.
Is this order and this code, right? But when you meet Ren, it's not that, and in that moment of revelation where she basically calls him out and basically says, in effect, like, you guys are basically a cult. I mean, it's more or less what she was saying.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are a little bit, like, on the fringe. It was kind of a very, it was an ironic moment in a way, in a lot of ways, and a very, plot development-wise, I thought it was a clever moment. Because or he's like like, what are you talking about? The way is the way, dude. You know,
Right,
like
right,
and
yeah.
no, not really. You know, that's not what our people are.
So it's
you know,
just-
so it's. I thought that was a very interesting moment just to have like someone who is a Mandalore kind of call into question the code, you
Yeah.
know, in that manner, and that of course leads to the moment you're talking
Yeah.
about. So, with that, I'd like to wrap up the talk. But this
Yes.
was, I mean, I think it sounds like we're both pretty excited about what's to come in the Star Wars world, especially
It's
if
nice to be
Favreau is
excited
at the
for-
at the helm of it.
It's nice to be excited for
creatively.
Star Wars.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It is. I have a little bit of that like inner child going right now, you know,
Yeah.
that from that original trilogy. So anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please do share, chime in on the comments, and let us know what your favorite moments were. Let us know that if we're completely wrong and the Mandalorian's not all that in a bag of chips.
Please comment all of the names that I did not know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Because I can't
apparently-
remember names like at all.
I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, so.
I don't
in
even know where I
fairness.
am right now.
Oh, okay. Well, we appreciate you tuning in. We're going to come back at you with another episode real quick, and it might have some weird connection to,
Yeah, I
to
wonder.
the Mandalorian.
I
I'm not sure
wonder
what that
they
might be,
have
but
involved.
yeah.
I
but
wonder what
anyway-
they have in common.
Yeah, stay tuned. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Take care.